Welcome to Arte. Today we're going to teach you how to program Victron's line of inverter chargers, the Multi-Plus and Quattro series, in a split phase configuration, specifically with a Lynx BMS and smart lithium batteries. First off, we want to make sure that both units have the same firmware installed so that they line up correctly. Once we have both units hooked up to a power source, we're going to connect to our PC laptop using an MK3 adapter. Now that we've connected up to our laptop, we're going to open VE Bus Quick Configure to start. It's going to prompt you with the same usual prompts that you'll see if you were setting to a standalone or setting this up in parallel. So we're going to click Next. And then once again, we're going to set up a VE Bus system, the same as if you were going to set up a parallel system. However, during the configuration, now we're going to select Split Phase 180 with Auto Detect. This auto detect portion means that there's some flexibility in what it's looking for. So if you're plugged into a 3-phase 208 system, say at an RV park, at the pedestal, then you'll be able to pull and operate off of that regardless of whether there's a slight variation in that voltage. So if we click Next, then it's going to show the connections once again. If you choose, remember we want to daisy chain those together rather than combining on an Ethernet switch. So to do that, I've got a Victron RJ45. I'm going to connect up in the primary unit and then also connect it up to that secondary unit. So now that I have my connections on my multi-pluses hooked up using the VE bus ports hooked up correctly, I'm going to go Next, and you'll see that I've automatically identified COM port 5, so I can click Next. It's going to ask me to have all of the units switched off, and so you can see that I haven't actually switched on either of my units yet. Once I click Next, it's going to ask me to turn on the primary unit. Normally I select the left side one, which we'll have in a standard multi-plus or quattro configuration. We would have that be line 1, and then it's going to ask me to turn on the secondary as well. It's going to say that it's going to send the settings to the system, and that's going to remove all of the assistants. We're going to click Yes. And once that's been sent, these units will turn blue on the screen, and that signifies the fact that they have been programmed in a split phase configuration and that this was done correctly. So now that that's done using VE Bus Quick Configure, I can click Done, and I'm going to open up VE Bus System Configurator. I can click on Quick Start Auto Detect, and it should detect both of these units in the system. Unlike on a parallel configuration, now we can see that there's one unit present on each line. So line 1, 1 unit, line 2, 1 unit. And these are switched as group. We want to unselect switched as group for most applications, especially in the RV side of things. By turning off switched as group, it allows us to plug into a 120 volt system or a 120 volt pedestal and still have full operational of the units. This is because now it's not only looking for 120/240, so if you plugged into a 120 volt line and it didn't see that secondary leg to produce 240, then it wouldn't allow operation if this was switched as group. So now that we can see that we've got one unit on line 1 and one unit on line 2, and they're both active and blue, we can also see that we're in split phase 180 degrees. Now we want to go into one of these units and right click like we would before and go into VE Configure Multi. This is going to open up VE Configure 3 from within VE Bus System Configurator. That gives the ability to send settings to both devices during this process. Had you have opened up VE Config 3, it wouldn't have the same option. Just as in a parallel configuration, you're going to be presented with the tabs up the top. So with General, we want to make sure that we're overruled by remote. If you don't want to have remote control over your AC input current limitation, then you can leave that checked off, and then you can set a hard limit in this box. However, typically we give our clients the option to dial this up or down on a GX device or using a digital multi-control. Because we're programming this configuration with a Lynx Smart BMS and Smart Lithium Victron batteries, we can skip the inverter tab because the shutdown detection is going to come directly from the BMS, and we want to make sure that the charger is configured to lithium iron phosphate batteries. To change this, if you needed to, you would click on battery type and it would give you all of the options below. A common mistake is to select Victron Smart Lithium batteries in conjunction with VE Bus BMS, even when using BMSs that are not VE Bus. And that's because most people read the Victron Smart Lithium batteries. If you don't have a VE Bus BMS like in this configuration, such as with a Lynx BMS, we just want to select the standard lithium iron phosphate battery selection, which is going to conform to the Victron Smart Lithium line. Once we've selected that, we can select OK, and that's going to pre-configure all of the set points that we need for those batteries. Once you've configured those two settings in the General and the Charger tab for specifically the Lynx BMS system, we need to send those settings to the inverters, and so we're going to click on Send Settings. We're going to select Modified Settings, and then we want to select all devices so that we configure both devices at the same time. We can click OK, and it's going to send those settings over. Once we've sent those settings, we can exit out of VE Configure 3, and it's going to return us to the VE Bus System Configurator. The final thing that we want to do is make sure that we send that configuration by going to Configure and Send Configuration, and that's going to reconfirm that to the Multipluses or Quattros. You'll hear them restart, and this is a good indicator that that has happened. Once you've done that, you can simply exit out of the bus system configurator, and you've successfully configured your Multiplus or Quattros in split phase. Thanks for following along today, talking about how to program Victron's line of inverter chargers, specifically the Quattro and Multiplus lineup, in conjunction with a Lynx BMS and Victron Smart Lithium batteries. If you have any questions, please reach out to our staff, and as always, we'll leave all of the applicable links in the description below.